The woman in apartment 7B. A friend of mine moved into a new apartment downtown. She was thrilled at first. Cheap rent, big windows, modern appliances, but soon the excitement turned into something that made her dread being alone. The first night, she woke around 2 a.m. to the sound of soft knocking on her apartment door. At first, she assumed it was a neighbor, maybe a drunken tenant returning late. She peeked through the peephole. Nobody. Quiet. She shrugged it off and went back to sleep. The second night, the knocking returned ludere more insistent. She called the front desk. Security. Cameras. Nothing. Must be a prank, the clerk said, advising her to ignore it. Then, small things began disappearing. Her phone charger vanished. So did a pair of shoes she left by the door. Items she remembered clearly, putting in plain sight. At first, she thought she was misplacing them, but the frequency became undeniable. One morning, she woke to a note taped to her bathroom mirror. In red ink, it read, "I like watching you sleep." Terrified, she contacted the police. They investigated and found something chilling. Someone had been living in the crawl space above her apartment ceiling for weeks, sneaking out at night to move around, observe her, even leaving the notes. The intruder had access to vents that allowed them to see her and apartment without ever being detected by security. She moved out immediately. Even now, she won't stay alone anywhere for more than a night. She told me she sometimes wakes in the middle of the night, convinced she hears footsteps above her ceiling, even in her new apartment. The passenger who never existed. A taxi driver I know picked up a late-night fare on a desolate road just outside the city. A man in a dark coat climbed in, gave an address, and didn't say a word for the entire ride. About 20 minutes in, the driver glanced into the rearview mirror and froze. The man had no reflection. For a moment, the driver thought he was seeing things. He turned to look back at the seat. No one there. Bill. Oh, the passenger was gone. Panicking, he slammed on the brakes and drove back to the pickup spot. Nothing. Empty road. No footprints. No evidence anyone had been there. The next night, he took the same shift and received the same fare. Same silent man. Same dark coat. Same disappearance. He quit driving night soon after, terrified of repeating the experience. Some nights, he still dreams of that empty seat. He says it feels like the man is waiting, watching him, silently judging, even when he's asleep. The apartment across the street. A guy I know noticed something strange from his apartment window across the street. In a unit that had been empty for months, lights flickered at the same time every night. At first, he ignored it. Maybe someone had moved in quietly, but after weeks, he realized that every night, he could make out the outline of someone standing in the window, not moving, just staring at him. One night, he asked a neighbor if anyone lived there. The neighbor looked at him blankly. "No one has been in that apartment for years," she said. He set up a camera on his balcony. The footage shocked him. At precisely 11:47 p.m. each night, a figure would appear at the window, a shadowy silhouette that didn't move naturally. Sometimes, it seemed to lean toward the camera, as if aware of being observed. Terrified, he moved apartments, but the image haunts him. He says even in his dreams, he sees that figure staring back at him across streets he doesn't live on anymore. The text that knew too much. A friend started receiving strange texts from an unknown number. At first, they were simple. Hello, where are you home? She ignored them, assuming it was a prank. Then, the messages became specific. I saw you leave work at 5:17 p.m. today. Your dog walked past the neighbor's fence. She hadn't shared her schedule with anyone. She changed her number. The messages continued. A new number, same knowledge, same precision. One night, a message came. I can see you right now. She looked out the window. At the edge of her yard, barely visible in the dark, stood a shadowy figure. Motionless, watching. She moved in with a friend for weeks and reported it to the police. There was no record of the number, no traceable device. It was as if someone had been inside her life entirely, tracking her routines, knowing her apartment, her comings and goings, waiting for the right moment. Even now, she triple-checks her doors and windows before leaving her house. She told me she feels like someone could appear at any moment, and there would be no warning until it's too late. The man in the alley. A friend of mine worked late nights at a convenience store in a sketchy part of the city. One night, around 1 a.m., he noticed a man standing in the alley behind the store. He was tall, thin, completely still, facing the wall. At first, my friend ignored him, thinking he was another homeless guy looking for shelter. Then the man moved. Slowly, he turned, and my friend realized the man was staring straight at him, not with curiosity, but with a kind of cold, calculating attention that made him shiver. My friend locked the door and continued stocking shelves, glancing out the window every few seconds. For the next hour, the man didn't move from the alley. He didn't blink, didn't shift, just studied. When my friend stepped outside briefly to take out the trash, the man was closer, standing maybe 10 feet away, silently watching. My friend called the police. They searched the area but found no one. Cameras nearby didn't record him entering or leaving. The man had just vanished. After that night, my friend installed extra cameras and never stayed alone again. But sometimes, during late shifts, he swears he sees a figure standing in the alley, waiting, not moving, just watching. The apartment that wasn't there. A young couple moved into a new apartment building. The first week was fine, but one night, the husband woke up to use the bathroom and noticed a light in the apartment directly across from theirs. Strange, because that unit was supposed to be empty. He looked closer and saw furniture, lights, a person pacing the room. He tapped his wife awake. They watched in silence, wondering how someone had moved in without their knowledge. The next night, the same light, same person pacing. And it wasn't just one night, this continued for weeks. Every night, the figure would appear, always pacing, always in the same way. Eventually, they contacted building management. The office confirmed the unit had been empty for months. No one had keys. No maintenance workers had been inside. They moved out immediately. Later, they discovered security footage of the building, but every time the figure appeared, it was gone when they reviewed the tape, like it had never existed, except for the nights they saw it. The shadow on the stairs. A college student lived alone in a small apartment. One night, she heard creaking from the stairs outside her door. She assumed it was a neighbor or the landlord checking the building. She ignored it and went back to bed. The next night, she heard it again, only louder, creaking steps going up and down. She peeked through the peephole. Nothing. No one. Then the steps started appearing during the day, even when she knew no one was home. Sometimes she'd open her door too, find her apartment completely untouched, except the stairs had faint scratches on the steps, as if someone had been dragging something heavy. One evening, she woke to her apartment door slowly opening. In the doorway was a shadow, not a person, but a dark silhouette shaped like a man. It didn't move, but she could feel it watching. She froze until the shadow slowly disappeared. She moved the next day, but friends who visited the old apartment later reported the same sound, creaking footsteps at odd hours. Even though no one had lived there for months, the Watcher in the woods. A man I know went camping with friends in a popular state park. On the first night, while sitting around the fire, noticed someone or something standing at the tree line just beyond their campsite. At first, he assumed it was another camper, but this figure didn't move, just stood there silently, staring. He waved. No response. His friends didn't see it, and when he pointed, it was gone. Over the next 2 nights, the figure returned, always at the same time, always standing just outside the glow of the firelight. My friend never felt safe sleeping. On the last night, he woke to the sound of branches snapping near his tent. Outside, a silhouette leaned over the tent, just watching. He screamed, and it disappeared. When they left, the rangers told him that while the park was popular, campers sometimes reported seeing someone watching from the woods, but no one was ever caught. To this day, he refuses to camp